Hi, so let's go on. So one day, a few years ago, I was fasting during the month of fast, and I was lying on my bed, and Baba came, and but he did, that black hat that he would sometimes wear, the Muslim, whatever it is. But then there's an Indonesian one. It's a kind of a more humble sort of thing. It kind of is cloth and it's sort of soft. And sometimes he wore that hat. And that's the hat he had on. He had that hat on, and he threw it down. I was lying on my cot, and he threw it down on the ground. And in the hat, it landed upside down. And in the lining of the cap, of the hat, was a little message. And the message, I had to kind of get up, look to see what it said. And it said that Subud needs a cultural adjustment. That's what it said. Cultural adjustment. So, I didn't quite know offhand what to make of that. Cultural adjustment. What does he mean? Cultural adjustment. But, during the period after that, as the fast ended and as I went through my daily life, whatever, I realized what it meant. What it means is that in each of our cultures, we have ways of doing things which are rather specific to our countries. They depend on our history, our position in the world, the influence of the different religions that have impacted on us. For instance, I consider, I won't go there, another subject. But so, in a environment which, was one of the first things that Suvi said was, well, because they asked him, I'm not going to go into that, but anyway, they asked him, the people over there in London, where you were, in Coombe Springs and so on, they were not sure how to proceed. So they went and asked Rafa. He said, well, just organize your groups normally. Just have a normal group, like how you do things. So, but, he didn't say this, but you can see why he said it. So that it blends in, so it becomes a normal part of society. And so, let's, look at England. Now, I should probably kind of maybe go to the United States rather quickly, because in England, and then, let's compare England with France. And England and France with the United States, and so on. Each one has a different set of values that people do. They have a different way of looking at themselves, how they feel about themselves, how they consider other countries, and so on and so forth. Now, in England, I understand they have local thises and that's where they vote on things, and then they have a representative and so forth and so on. He speaks to whatever, and then they get off into Parliament and the House of Lords and the King and Queen and so on. So the English people have a way that they like to run things. They feel comfortable, and that's how they run things. Unless there's some sort of strange organization. And then, there are business organizations, and they run things a certain way. But community organizations have a tendency to, they follow those kind of patterns. And generally, they vote. They vote on things that concern them. So let's imagine that the people who went to see Subi Bapak were able to follow his suggestion and be full-hearted. Say, let's be normal. Let's have a normal how we normally do things. Well, you would have a thing where everyone in the group, unless I'm mistaken, now you can tell me that I could be wrong about this, but idealistically, and the goal that you have is that everyone in the group has a say. Everyone gets to vote. Everyone takes part in, espousing and putting forward the things that they want and that they think are important, and so on and so forth. And discussions are held, and so forth and so on. Now, let's imagine that you had a group like that and say, okay, so we're gonna do things the way we do things. Not gonna listen to how they do it in Finland. Not gonna take up the role of the Indonesians, how they do things. They're very different from us. We're gonna do things the way we do things, because that's who we are. We are English people. And the same thing would take place in France. The French, I'm French, and I have things in my blood that cry out for equality and liberty, and I don't know, brotherhood. I'm not sure. I'm not real strong on. I don't know exactly. I mean, I do believe in the unity of human beings. But anyway, enough about me. So in France and in England, the two countries would come up with they would be different ways. There would be more emphasis on, let's say, being fair and equal in France, let's say, than perhaps it would be in England. There would be definite differences, and that would all work itself out in how they set up their groups. Now then, if they set them up like English people do or French people do, then other French people who came to those meetings or were interested in joining Subud would have no problem in interfacing with the group, because it was the way French people or English people do things. You can see that Baba realized, and we all realize, just kind of by his intimations and so on, that we do not want to run things the same way, that everybody's ego and everybody's opinions, and people are so different. Particularly, one could see that in the kinds of people who are coming into Cebu, very different classes of people, very different economic status, different races, different nationalities, even in the same country. So differences of opinion could be quite large. Plus, you can imagine that, as you know from your experience, people in Cebu going through a bunch of stuff are half out of their mind part of the time in the early years. And they're paying attention to, they're very absorbed and connected up with what's going on inwardly with them, or their progress, or whatever it might be that they're interested in. Um, because of course, for most of us, it's a pretty big shock to have a proof that God exists, and then to be, faced with, kind of having to rewrite everything and kind of, get off of your own self and but you still be in your own nature, and a bunch of things that we had to deal with. So a lot of people were pretty preoccupied with that. And they, uh, would tend to. So the organization itself would be something of secondary interest to them, at least secondary. But let's imagine a group like that. Now, but we want to eliminate, as you pointed out in your book, the ego and this and that. And as you said, I don't know who I was. I was this way, and so it's a meeting. I was this way with this kind of person, that way with, the girls I favored, and so on. Um, and so forth and so on. And who was I, And so we would not want to get into that kind of thing. Even there in England, they wouldn't want to. So there's a very simple way, which I was discussing. I was getting a little bit agitated, I guess. I don't want to do that in my last video about voting and being moved. But you want to, and this is all coming, this is coming from the guidance of God. People should be equal. They should have a say in things. They should be culturally aligned in their country. Moved to vote on things so that the Almighty can guide them and their group in their actions. And that way the content moving forward would be pure and clean and without entanglements and dissension and difficulty. So that's the way forward. So as I say, that's just straight guidance there. I'm not involved in that. That's what comes out. So I'm talking content. What is the content, the source of what we are looking at? Not a bunch of ideas and cover thoughts and this and that. And I don't think that Subi would disagree with what that guidance is saying. Because then each soul would be able to have a part in their local organization. So there would be a kind of a freedom, a kind of fairness, and then they could, have their systems appointed as they do in their country. However that might be. So, in that way of things, there would not be something foreign and something unusual or spiritual about the group. Being spiritual, I found after quite a few years in Subud, I remember one day I said to myself, I don't think I'm cut out to be a spiritual person. Spiritual person. I'm just a regular guy, I'm an ordinary guy. And of course, there's a temptation to be spiritual, and then if you're going to be spiritual, and you're going to say, well, would the members please come together and quieten themselves and you know, look spiritual, and then we can talk while you're just imitating the spirit, what you think of as a spiritual person. And of course, as you know, if you looked at Baba walking around and making jokes and doing things, he was never like that. He was full of life, and every now and then you catch him, he'd look kind of spiritual. But we talk to him. God, I remember. It's amazing talking about him. I remember one day I was, upset about how things were going, and I went to his room at the Miramar Hotel in Santa Monica in California. And I wasn't going through any channels, and nobody was guarding his door or anything. He was by himself in a room. And the door was just slightly open, just a crack. And there was a force, you could see it. I mean, there was like a thing there, holding that door. So you couldn't just open it up and walk in, no. So I knocked on, as I recall, I knocked on the door, and then I kind of opened it a little bit. And Bapak was, those rooms at the Miramar were quite fun. They had an open window, each one of them, a lot of them. They looked out on the ocean. It was nice. And there was a little balcony there or something, most likely. And when I saw him, when I first glimpsed at him, he looked kind of old and bent over and thin. And, kind of leaning over the balcony a bit, and not a big, powerful, strong presence at all, but just this kind of little guy. Yeah, and he heard the knock, I guess. Anyway, he turned around and he came on. As he walked toward me, he got bigger and bigger, and it was like light. I mean, we talk about light. You know what I mean. It's not like there was light everywhere, but there was light around him. It was like a golden kind of thing, with his features there and everything too. It was just kind of part of the whole picture. And so there we were. I was speaking English, and and he was, as I was talking, and he said, he said to me, because it wasn't going to work because he didn't speak English, and of course, sometimes he did. That's another story. But mostly he didn't, and so Usman was with him at the time. There's nobody else around in the hallway or anywhere. So down a couple of rooms there was a group of students. Anyway, so he said to me, see Usman, talk to Usman. So I went looking for Usman, and then while in the process of looking for Usman, but I realized across my forehead, I was, the brainy, kind of had the brain working, and I was mostly, somewhat agitated, and so I went down to that room with some of my friends, normal people, regular people, not Baba, down there, and I was sitting there, and for quite a long time, 15, 20, maybe minutes, maybe longer, there was this wave of energy that was going across my forehead, just calming down, no thoughts coming, no thoughts. It didn't put me into a different state, but it did. It was very nice. It was something I'd never asked for, but it was very nice. Just calming down my frontal lobes. So, yeah. there was another story, a great story. And Usman was involved in it as well. I wonder, maybe I shouldn't tell you that story. Get off the subject. Well, okay, so I'll mention it. God, I wonder if I should do this. Anyway, it was Usman's birthday. It's a Miramar hotel. Fifth floor, whatever it was, top floor. Sunny, bright, sunny Los Angeles day. Ocean in the background. Nice. 30 or 40 of us were in this big hotel suite. It was huge. A couple of rooms and the kind of thing that looked out on the courtyard. Usman was there. It was his birthday. We asked him a question. We said, or someone asked him a question. So Usman, what's the definition of a brotherhood? And he looked at us and he said, a brotherhood is a group of people who fight to stay together. Yeah, I like that. I think we should, we need to take up more of that idea. Anyway, Buffett wasn't there. And other people weren't there as well. But a number of the local area group people were there, people I knew. And so Buffett came in. I think we were expecting him. Oh, here he comes. He's in the room. He's sitting near Usman or something. I got up, because I was kind of in that place. So I got up and I walked to the center of the room, and I was facing this woman I know from some area in Los Angeles. They had a group out there. And, I knew her, and we were talking briefly. And something happened. An angel, I think Buffett did it. I'm embarrassed to say, even at this point, I haven't really looked to see for sure what it was. But I can tell you it was quite real. And what it was that all of a sudden, I'm talking to this girl about normal things, and all of a sudden, I can see what people are thinking. I mean, I could actually see, because I remember reading about, Buffett talked about when he went to the office, he could tell what people were thinking, and he knew it would change, as he said. It would change his that was in Beyond the Stars, Journey Beyond the Stars. It would change his relationship with them. I didn't know quite what he meant. He could see what they were thinking. Well, I got open and I didn't see what people were thinking. No, I didn't. But, you could kind of sense what people were doing. You could kind of imagine that you knew what he was talking about. This day, I got the real thing. What it was you could see the inner of the person, the being, and the thought was coming up, would come up like this. Ba, 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 like a stream. Like if you were looking at an aquarium or something, where little streams come. And so, and then down the hall, because in that state, I could see through the wall. And I could see Hosanna Barron was walking down the hallway. But I didn't see Hosanna Barron's body. I saw her being, and I could see her thoughts, what she was thinking. I don't remember what they were, but I could see them. Oh, it's marvelous. This is great. Now I'll be able to see what people are thinking. It'll be wonderful. It'll be very helpful. And I remember, saying to the girl, isn't this fantastic? And she was going, yeah, it is. It's fantastic. And I just assumed that she was having the same experience, and everyone in the room was having it. It just seemed so, it didn't seem like a personal thing. It was just, there it was. You could see what people were thinking. Wow, what fun. And after some time, I don't know what, it went away. And then years later, I realized I never really asked her if she had that experience. I just assumed that they did, and so I never found out whether everybody had it. Not that it really mattered. I think probably everybody was having something, but I didn't think to ask them if they were having the same thing. Anyway, getting back to the topic, so in a community like that, everybody would feel comfortable. They would be English, doing their English thing. They would have that power from their nation in them, working. This is how we do it. We're English. That's how we do things. Finnish, French, you know. But when it came time to deciding things, you know, there would be, of course, I suppose, different kinds of decorum involved. The English are pretty decorous. The French, I've heard, you know, which is always dangerous, but you know, I mean, I know from my own French ancestors, they can argue like crazy and say all kinds of things that it doesn't really mean much to them. I mean, you know, it's just, I mean, they're just expressing their feeling. It's not personal, and they're not trying to kill anybody, but it sometimes seems like they are. But I don't want to be unfair to the French. That's probably just a certain group of people, and there's probably quite a few people who aren't like that. But anyway, so you would, you know, if you wanted a chairman or something, then you would meet, and you would people could put forward whoever they wanted to, couldn't they? Isn't that how you would do it in England? Anyone who wanted to be? Would you have to have certain criteria? I don't know. Maybe you would, but whatever the criteria was or wasn't, you would put those people forward, and then you would vote on them. Everyone would vote. Everyone. And how would you vote? They would say so-and-so's name, and you would wait until you were moved. So if you weren't moved, let's say you were moved. Oh, no, let's say you weren't moved. So you weren't moved, you wouldn't vote. Now, somebody comes along, good feeling. You're not thinking, or you don't need to think about it, because you know you don't really need to concern yourself with it very much. You can concern yourself with it when you nominate somebody, or you have a feeling, or whatever. Whatever's, you know. My grandson says, whatever floats your boat. But you know, whatever is moving you and you're allowing is directing you, you can put that person forward. But then when it came time to vote, you would put all of that aside, calm yourself down, and wait, you know, so you could have some action there. And so when a certain person would come, you could kind of feel it coming. Probably it'd be kind of a light feeling or something. Their name would come up. You wouldn't be thinking about it particularly, or maybe you would. But you know, in any case, you would wait and discipline yourself until you were moved to vote. Then you would find, oh, and if people were following guides and everything else, I mean, they were really doing that. Which everyone should learn how to do that. To resist in a normal situation until you're moved. I mean, it's how children operate. You're not sure about something, they resist it. Grab the candy. I remember once my daughter Miriam, we were at a store, and and I was talking to the woman behind the counter about vitamins, and the woman offered Miriam some candy, and you know, kind of over the counter, looking down at Miriam. Miriam was on the other side of the counter, and she looked at, she did not want the candy. Well, I said, okay, put the candy down there on the counter. Pretty soon, the hand comes up, takes the candy. Anyway, you would resist until you were moved, and that would be, what would that be? That would be the Almighty, in fact, moving you, guiding you in your actions to pick the person that God knew would be satisfy your needs, because He loves us and He wants things to go well for us. So that's my message. Cultural adjustment. That's what I've learned. Equality. Depends on your country. I don't want to get too much into equality because I'm very strong on equality. To me, everyone is equal. And you know, just to be honest, I mean, you can talk all kind of things that you want to, but to me, a spider, which I don't like spiders particularly, daddy long legs are okay. There's a lot of spiders I don't want to. But this spider, to me, is a creation of God, and it is, I don't say that I have, I'm superior, I can do whatever I want with that spider at all. I don't say that. And I don't say that about people. And over the years I found that there are people who you might originally think, or you might have an impression of them, you might think, my God, this person, whatever, I mean, what are they even, they're out of their minds, they're crazy, they're this or that, they're not very nice. But if you're around that person for a while, you get to know them. I find wonderful, they have good qualities, they have qualities that you don't have. So I'm strong on equality myself, but I'm just saying. As the culture is, so should the group be. And there are other issues here that need to be addressed. But I don't want to go on too long. It's already been 31 minutes. I will say, will I say? Let's, no, I'm going to go on a little bit further. If you study, if you read that book, this is the one book that Baba supposedly had Luke Von Kiel write for children, which I didn't read for quite a while. That was for kids, and I started realizing this is a pretty simple book. But later on, I realized I was a child, and a marvelous book. But if you read about it, you can see insights that mostly the Indonesians know at this point about the Dutch. So Indonesia, let's say, as opposed to France or Spain or Italy or England, Britain, and so forth, the United States, was suborned and dominated, by the Dutch. For a very long time, the Dutch didn't think much of they made fun of the Indonesians and didn't respect them as an equal. No. That's what you can learn from reading that book. And so the Indonesian people, that stuff gets into your system. And so I guess I haven't studied the Indonesian history, but eventually they got their own government, which, wasn't sure how well that's going. They're pretty new at it, I think. And it's probably after the Second World War. I mean, so really not that long that they've been able to, they've had their own government. And, there's all the mischief that goes on with people who start their own governments in the early years. And then, so, now I'm surmising a little bit, but it seems from listening to Babak and reading that book and probably a couple of other things, that Indonesia, the people in Indonesia went off and were more spiritual and had gurus and people they looked up to, and the walis, the Muslim saints, and they had a whole big tradition of spirituality, which kind of, kept them out of the Dutch dominance. They had their own culture, and they took refuge in it. I would dare say. And so their whole life and their whole thing was in their spiritual. A bunch of them, not everybody, was in their spiritual ways that they had in their, in their attitudes, which, as you know, is far different from the Western countries. So the Indonesians looked up to gurus, and they looked up to the saints, and they modeled themselves after those things. And of course, in our societies, we also do that with the Christian and the Muslim faith. With people, I mean, if you're religious, um, I'm not. I certainly know that there is a God. I don't have any problem. I'm just gonna God, God, God. There's God, and that's that. And there are many things, and many things, and many things, and many things in the Bible and the Quran that are certainly true, and there are ways of doing things that are very beneficial for man. But I don't. I am in the way that you're in, which is we don't learn by belief. We learn by experience. What is the experience? For instance, I'm going to make this take too long. I'm going to talk about Saturday's Sabbath. But so those people were oppressed, and they went to their gurus to get that Dutch dominant world, away. They want to hear it, and the disrespect and everything else. But it's not like that in the West. We're not, by me, subtly, in quite a few ways, we are brainwashed and oppressed. But basically, we've been strong, and we've had our own countries. We run our own countries. So that's how we like to do things. We run our own thing. We don't have a bunch of gurus or whoever they are, spiritually advanced people, telling us what to do. No, we need to do it ourselves. Isn't that how it is? Isn't that what we do? We'll do the best we can, and then we'll learn for ourselves. And because of course we've had our share of I don't know what gurus and stuff around, and you can find there's a lot of funny business. There's a lot of kind of I don't know what going on with those people. I'll take a good plain construction worker, an artisan like you are, an artist, somebody who works with their hands and knows about physical reality, what works and what is possible, what isn't possible, and becomes a regular person, humbled to some degree. Or brought to the truth by your own trade. And all the things that you learn that God gives you when you follow that trade. So these are the ways, that I'm suggesting that we should be following. Then we could be, and not, we should follow those ways, and then we would be culturally adjusted to our country. Okay, that's going to have to do it. I don't want to go on. There's more stuff, and a few more important things that I need to discuss with you, but I will stop this, and I hope that you won't watch the next one right away, because I don't want to burn you out. And I want this to be a fun thing for you, something that you can kind of think about, say, yeah, well, no, but he's wrong about that, but he's right about that, and, that kind of thing. All right, God bless, love you. Hope everybody in your family is well, and I think of you, but, and I'm a little concerned about how well you can see and how things are going, but I'm pretty sure that you're having a good time, because I know you're a spiritual being, and you have an inner life, and I'm sure it's very interesting. I'd like to hear more about about that one of these days. Okay, bye-bye.